Best practices for hybrid events? Some of you are probably thinking it's about time. My name's David, and I've been producing virtual events and hybrid events for some time now. And I can tell you, hybrid events are difficult. They're really tough. Sometimes the best we can do is just broadcasting the sessions so that our virtual attendees can watch them and calling it hybrid. But it's not really hybrid. There's no interactivity between the virtual attendees and the in-person attendees. No interactivity between the virtual attendees and other virtual attendees. They're just watching. So with that in mind, our 4 best practices are designed to increase that interactivity. And I saw this in practice at the Zoomtopia event. I was at Zoomtopia in person, and while I was there, people were commenting on the fact that it was a successful hybrid event. I was seeing tweets live, like this one. By the way, if you're not following Chris is awesome, you should follow him. But Chris is saying that this was a successful hybrid event and that there were takeaways, not just from the announcements at the event, but from the event itself. So when I saw this, I started thinking, and while I was at the event, I went and I talked to the events team and I said, hey, let's talk about what made this successful. And working with them, we created a case study on the Zoomtopia event. The link is below so you can read this. It's a quick read. I hope you like it. And it goes through everything that made the Zoomtopia event successful. But what I want to focus on here are the 4 best practices that are included within that document. So let's bring up another tweet from the event. This is from Erwin, someone else you should be following. And you could see we're going to discuss some of our best practices are in place back there. But Erwin makes a point we need to address before we go into our best practices. Zoom used its Events app for this event. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the Events app. I have other videos about it. I'll put the links below. Please watch my videos about the Events app if you're interested. So just quickly, let me give you a sneak peek of what it looks like. They're developing it heavily. Things might move around. It might not look exactly like this, but this is basically the Zoom Events app. Where you see me is the preview window, so you could see any session live as it's happening. You can click thumbnails to peek in on other sessions. And if you click the little join button, it puts you in the webinar for full interactivity. But as I said, I don't want to spend too much time on the app. I want to get to the best practices. And the first best practice is they took questions from the chat. And what I mean by that is usually when you're at an event, whether it's a keynote or a session or a seminar, if you're there in person, they'll have microphones and people lined up by the microphone, or you raise your hand and they walk around and hand you a microphone. They didn't do that. You had to open up the webinar on your phone or your laptop or whatever and use the text Q&A just like the virtual attendees. That put everyone on the same playing field. We're all asking questions the same way. And it made things easier, I would think, for the moderators. Instead of having to get questions from 2 different places, all the questions are just there on the app. And it made the virtual attendees, I'm sure, feel as if they were on an even playing field because they were. Now, you may be thinking, that seems less interactive to me if the moderator is just going to read the questions from the chat rather than having people ask their own questions. Well, no, you could still have full interactivity. Just use the chat as the cue for the question. When someone's questions come up, you could say, oh, the next question is from Steve. Is Steve here in person or is Steve virtual? If Steve's virtual, you could bring Steve up on camera and have Steve ask his own question. If Steve is there in person, hand Steve a microphone. You still have the full interactivity. It's just the way that people are queuing up their questions, the way they're getting in line to ask their questions is all done through the app, and it puts everyone on the same playing field, and it made it feel more hybrid. Our second best practice is a really fun one. Let's bring up Erwin's tweet again, and you can see this is the main stage. We're having our keynote. Here's Eric, our CEO, and behind him you'll see these little circles. These weren't images, these were live videos. And you may think, oh yeah, they were Zoom employees being paid to sit there and smile at a camera. No, these were remote attendees. And it wasn't just, oh, so okay, they had a dozen remote attendees that were on screen. They kept fading away. The circles would get really small and new circles would pop up with new virtual attendees. And it was great because every time one would come up, they're watching this live, they see their own face come up in the circle, they get a big smile. So there's new smiling people all the time. It was just, it's hard to explain, but it was just really cool. There were a lot of people tweeting about it. Dave Michaels, he was there in person with me, and all he had to say about it is he liked it. I liked it. Everyone liked it. When we saw the people popping up, those of us who were there in person were smiling. It felt like a bigger event. It felt like we were interacting with more people. it made it hybrid. Our third best practice is along the same lines. You'll see in the screenshot all these hearts flying up. They're emojis. You've seen things like this on different apps. This is back from the Vine and Periscope days. But it was great because, first of all, the remote attendees have a way to interact. Every time we see a heart fly up, we know that remote people are enjoying the session. But people who were there in person were using it. You don't want to clap and interrupt everything all the time. If you just like something a little, it's fun. I saw people sitting there smashing the heart button. And it was truly hybrid. Whether you're there in person or not, it was a way for everyone to interact. And it was just fun. It's hard to explain, but it was just one of those things that just everyone seemed to like. Our fourth and final best practice is really about bringing the first three together. It's about training your host and your speakers to do everything they can to increase the interactivity. Here was the host, Alex Bornstein, our celebrity host, and there she is making the joke about if you're at a Zoom event, you don't need pants. But she didn't just use Zoom as a source for her jokes. She used the Zoom platform to increase the interactivity to make it a more hybrid event. The people behind her, she kept talking to them. She kept noticing them. She kept pointing at them, using them in her material. And not just the fact that they were there, they would actually make their video bigger and put them up on audio, and she would interact with them. She would joke with them, have a face-to-face, voice-to-voice conversation with the virtual attendees. Just as she brought someone who was there in person up on stage and had a joking session with them. In person, virtual, our host was having face-to-face interaction with them. It really, really brought everyone together. And other little things, the emojis. She loved them. She got excited when she would see them. She would ask people, hey, I want to see more hearts. I want to see more smiley faces, whatever. She got into it. And that encouraged people to use them. And it just made it feel more hybrid, brought everyone together. So I hope you found these 4 best practices helpful. And please check out the link in the description for a copy of the case study on Zoomtopia and for links to my videos on the Zoom Events app. Thanks for watching.